Since we tied the knot, my husband, a real mama's boy, never lifted a finger around the house. When I mentioned I was heading out on a business trip, he freaked out, saying,
"Who's gonna take care of me?"
After a big blow-up, I left for my week-long trip. When I got back, there was a filled-out divorce form and a note for me. It said,
"Since you ditched the housework, I'm heading back to my folks. Check out the divorce papers and think things over."
Reading this, my blood boiled. The nerve of him, leaving a divorce threat. But then, I started to cool off. After all, I had been thinking that maybe divorce wouldn't be the worst idea. Perhaps this was a sign. Heck, I'll just file them. And that's exactly what I did. The next morning, my miffed husband burst in, asking,
"Hold on, where are the divorce papers?"
"Oh, I filed them." What came next was my clueless husband making a scene, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm Kelly, 30 years old. I got married a year ago, and I'm a working housewife. After college, I worked hard at a big company. Before I realized, I was nearing 30, with no boyfriend in sight. My folks were always on my case about settling down, so I grudgingly joined a dating agency. That's where I bumped into Ray, who'd later become my husband. Ray, a couple of years my junior, worked at a mid-sized firm. I was drawn to his soft-spoken nature, and after some dates, we got serious, thinking about the long haul. During our dating phase, he was the model boyfriend, always respecting my views. We never butted heads, so when he proposed to me, I joyfully said yes. We were officially engaged. Visiting my folks, they reminded us,
"Marriage is for keeps. Kelly, always be there for Ray. Ray, look after Kelly. Okay?"
I acknowledged them, and Ray paid close attention. Then, we dropped by Ray's folks. His dad, Drew, greeted me warmly.
"I've heard so much about you from my boy. It's great to finally meet you."
His mom, Sally, poised yet reserved, questioned, "Ray, is this the one?"
"Yup, Mommy. I want to marry her."
I was a bit stunned. Did he just call her Mommy? Seriously? I imagined someone younger. Maybe a tad more girly? Even though I was older and had short hair, I was stunned she'd be so blunt. Drew stepped in.
"Enough with the comments. I'm sorry, Kelly."
Sally held her tongue. Drew pressed on.
"We're very happy about your marriage. But just know..."
Huh?
"Ray's had it pretty easy living here. He might be a handful. Kelly, you sure about this? I've got my doubts."
I responded, "I adore Ray's soft side. I know we'll have each other's backs." He gave a nod and told Ray,
"Starting a family's a big deal, son. Step up and keep her happy." "All right, Dad."
Ray, looking dead serious, nodded. Our meetup with Ray's parents wrapped up, and soon after, we made our marriage official. We had a low-key wedding and began our journey as a married couple. My parents surprised us with a condo. As we settled into marital bliss, it hit me. Ray couldn't do any chores. One day, he set his alarm for 7, but stayed knocked out. I was already doing laundry and making breakfast. No matter how much I tried waking him, he didn't budge. At last, after tossing his covers and giving him a shake, he stirred.
Whoa, it's 7:30 already. Why didn't you get me up?
I did. Your alarm was blaring too. Now, eat your breakfast. Wiping his eyes, he made his way to the dining table and began griping about the breakfast I made.
Hey, Kelly, this egg's too runny.
Is that a big deal?
I can't eat it unless it's well done. Do it over.
He blurted this out while I was in the middle of hanging laundry. Holding back my frustration, I retorted, "Then don't eat."
Why would you say that? And this coffee's burning hot. Mommy always got the eggs and coffee spot on.
All right. I quickly redid the egg and chilled the coffee a bit. He happily wolfed it down, but without even clearing his plate, made a beeline for the restroom. Wait up. You know you should clean up after yourself.
Ugh, I'm short on time.
He excused himself, even though he made me remake his breakfast because he overslept. Annoyed, I stopped doing my makeup to tackle the dishes. As I was picking out my outfit, he summoned me.
Kelly, over here.
What now? I gotta head out too.
Help with my tie. I can't knot it.
Standing there, with a tie just hanging, he looked helpless. Seriously? You can't even do a tie? What do you do before we married?
Mommy always did it.
I exhaled, knotted his tie, and somehow we both left the house. That's just how it was. He never pitched in with any housework. It felt like I was juggling everything plus babysitting him. Every time something came up, it was always,
Mommy did it this way,
or
with Mommy, it went like that.
Always referencing Sally. This routine stretched on for a year, and the pressure kept mounting. Thoughts of divorce snuck in now and then, but my dad's words about marriage being forever held me back. Out of the blue, due to a work hiccup, I was assigned a week-long business trip starting the next day. Breaking the news to my husband that evening, he, deeply into his video game, looked taken aback.
Hold up. A business trip? A whole week?
It's out of my hands. Work's calling.
No way. Who's gonna cover for you here for a week?
He played on, clearly peeved. You'll have to step up. It's about time you got a grip on house stuff. At that, he set down his game and locked eyes with me.
Isn't the wife supposed to care for her husband and the house? Are you just bailing on that?
Seriously? That's such old school thinking. We both have jobs. We should be a team.
That's not how I see it. Mommy was always on top of things at home.
But she was a stay-at-home mom. And honestly, it's kinda odd to hear an adult man always dropping the mommy card. Pushing back, he reddened.
What's your deal? Taking shots at me and my mommy?
I'm not, but let's be real. You're a mama's boy.
Really? This is how you see me? You think you can talk to me like that?
I thought, oops. But I had hit my limit. Face it, you're a mama's boy. You can't get up without help, can't even knot your own tie, and won't lift a finger around the house. And you're constantly stacking me up against your mom. For once, handle your own stuff.
Really? You're gonna come at me like that? That's why I was iffy about marrying someone older. Should have sided with mommy and chosen a younger, perkier girl.
His words hit a nerve, and our chat spiraled into a major blowout. Even joking, you shouldn't say stuff like that. We're married.
If I had known you'd be this bossy and aloof, I'd have thought twice. And maybe splitting up is our best bet.
I was taken aback by his sudden divorce talk. He went on, sounding rather smug.
You can't possibly get divorced, can you? You wouldn't want to be labeled divorced. And think about what your dad said about sticking together.
Don't just toss around the word divorce.
Well, I just did. If you take off for this business trip and leave me here, I'm actually thinking about divorce.
With that, he stormed into our bedroom, leaving me in shock. Even though the idea of divorce had been tough, because I didn't want to let my parents down, now seemed like the time to give it real thought. With that on my mind, I went to sleep. Bright and early the next day, I was up prepping for my trip. Our big blowout was still weighing on me, but there was work to be done. I nudged Ray, still under the covers. I'm heading out. You better wake up, or you'll be late for work. His answer came out in a sleep-muddled mumble. Rolling my eyes, I headed out. A few hours later, a text from him popped up.
You barely tried to wake me. Now I'm running late. Did you really go on that trip?
I quickly texted back. I did wake you up. And yes, I'm on my trip. I'll be back in a week. He read my message, but didn't bother replying. Mid-trip, I called my parents to give them the lowdown on Ray's antics and mentioned I was leaning towards divorce. I braced for a lecture, but what they said caught me off guard.
We had no clue he acted like this. Take your time thinking, but don't force yourself to stay. Always remember, we're in your corner, no matter what you decide.
Their support choked me up. When I got back, Ray and I were due for a serious sit-down. If he didn't shape up, divorce was on the horizon. Thoughts swirling, I returned after my week away. Walking in late, I noticed Ray wasn't home yet. As I scanned the room, a signed divorce document and a note caught my eye. The note read,
Since you ditched the housework, I'm heading back to my folks. Check out the divorce papers and think things over.
Reading this, my blood boiled. The nerve of him, leaving a divorce threat. But then, I started to cool off. After all, I had been thinking that maybe divorce wouldn't be the worst idea. Perhaps this was a sign. Heck, I'll just file them. And that's exactly what I did. When the papers went through, I felt like a ton of bricks had been lifted. That evening, I went to bed and had the best sleep. The next morning, sipping a relaxing cup of coffee, I heard the door. In walks Ray.
Kelly, why didn't you come to my folks' place to apologize to me? What's gotten into you?
He was steaming. Then, spotting the empty spot where the divorce papers had been, his eyes widened.
Hold on. Where are the divorce papers?
Oh, I filed them.
You did what?
He looked like he'd been slapped.
You really went through with it?
Thanks for signing them. Made everything smoother.
You can't be serious. You actually went all the way? Have you lost your mind?
Seeing how collected I was, he lost his cool.
That's it. I'm calling my parents.
Sure, knock yourself out. An hour later, Sally and Drew showed up at our place. Sally, spotting me right away, dramatically exclaimed, "You! How could you just divorce Ray like that? What's your deal?" I replied, coolly, "If he had the divorce papers all filled out and ready to go, doesn't that mean he wanted out? Is that an issue?" "How can you be so bold when you're just his wife?" But Drew quickly cut her off with a firm,
"Enough."
The room went still as Drew asked,
"Kelly, can you walk us through what happened?"
I agreed and detailed his past antics, our spat right before I left, and the divorce papers he left behind. I was at my wit's end. It seemed like he wanted a divorce, so I went with it. I held Drew's gaze while explaining. He paused, mulling it over. Ray piped up,
"Mommy, Dad, come on. Can't you see she's out of line? Tell her off."
Sally jumped in. "Oh, Ray, my poor baby. She's so hasty. You should reverse the divorce right now." "There's no reversing. Our divorce is done and dusted. We're basically strangers now." Sally's face flushed, and she tried to respond, but Drew stepped in again.
"Zip it. Kelly, I apologize for Ray's behavior."
Ray, eyes bulging, got an earful from his dad.
"You bonehead. I knew you had issues, but this is next level. Using divorce papers as a threat? Unbelievable. You had it coming, Ray."
"Hold on." Sally tried to interject, but he kept going.
"It's partly on you. You spoiled him. Watch out. If you keep this up, I might divorce you next."
Sally was taken aback, muttering, "Divorce?" Drew pivoted back to me, looking very sorry.
"Kelly, I regret the trouble our clueless son caused you. Please, move on and find joy."
"Thanks, Drew." With that, Drew took off, practically dragging a whimpering Ray with him. Word got around that he severed ties with his own son. Ray ended up in a dingy apartment, living alone for the first time. His place was a disaster, and being habitually late got him booted from his job. Sally, always butting into Ray's affairs, was caught by her husband, and they genuinely split. Now, she's living with Ray, hustling in low-end jobs to get by. I don't see a turnaround for them in sight. They are no longer my concern. As for me, I've got a condo to myself, and I'm focused on my career. Without Ray dragging me down, the place feels so much more open, and my job's going better than ever. I'm excited for whatever's next for me.
When I found out I was pregnant, I immediately envisioned a happy future. With my beloved husband and our adorable child, I thought we could build a wonderful family together and live happily. Yet, I never expected that such a reality awaited me. This is a story of how I battled the worst, most domineering husband. My name is Eleanor. I'm 30 years old. My husband's name is William, and he's a 34-year-old office worker. We've been married for almost 2 years now. Due to the age difference, my husband tends to be a bit domineering. He's the one who sets all the basic rules in our house. When William and I were getting married, he told me that he wanted me to take care of the house as a homekeeper. I accepted that request. Although I have less disposable income than when I was single, there are some aspects that make me feel a bit uncomfortable. However, I can only feel gratitude towards my husband for providing for me. Originally, I had a tendency to be indecisive, so having a husband who handles everything efficiently was very reliable. That's why I thought it was just right for him to be a bit domineering. Then one day, I, who had nothing but my health, became unusually ill. I had a fever, and my whole body felt heavy. I was in no condition to do any housework. I told my husband, who was lying beside me, "Sorry, William, I'm feeling a bit under the weather." My husband then sluggishly got up.
Is it a cold?
He asked. I think I will be fine, but my body feels a bit sluggish, since I can't get up. Is it alright if you just get yourself a casual breakfast today?
I see. For now, it's better to rest all day today. I'll be going to work, so if anything happens, please call your dad or mom.
It's not call me, is it? I felt a bit lonely, but my husband's company was in the midst of a busy season. Him suggesting that I contact my parents was probably his way of looking out for me. Both sets of in-laws lived nearby and always cared for us as a couple. I myself wasn't in a condition so severe that I couldn't move. After seeing my husband off, I decided to take it easy and rest for the day. However, my symptoms showed no signs of improvement. Even after several days, normally, a good night's sleep would cure it within a day. But this time, it had been 3 days and still no improvement. Even after a week passed, it was still no better. Even my husband, who is usually very composed, began to worry about my lingering health issues.
Hey, Eleanor, maybe it's a good idea to go to the hospital.
Yeah, you're right. I will go check it out tomorrow. The following day, I decided to get examined at the nearby general hospital. After the tests were done,
You're pregnant.
Huh? I froze in shock upon hearing the news from the doctor. Pregnant? Me? Becoming a mother? I couldn't find the right words to express the incredible mix of joy and anxiety. For the time being, I returned home and decided to wait for my husband to come back. A few hours later, when my husband returned home, I told him about the fact that I was pregnant. William, it seems like I'm pregnant.
Huh? Pregnant?
It must have come as a surprise because my husband's eyes widened.
But you weren't feeling well, right? Could it be some illness?
Nope. All the symptoms I had were actually morning sickness.
Morning sickness?
As I explained the symptoms, my husband furrowed his brow. Then, he started saying something insensitive.
So, that means it's not an illness, right? Just that you were being a bit needy.
Needy? I didn't mean to come across that way.
Well, morning sickness isn't really an illness, is it?
Yet, you've been skipping chores and sleeping for a whole week. Isn't there any explanation besides being needy?
It might not be an illness, but it was really tough, you know. The feverish sensation and overall fatigue.
You can describe it in different ways. Besides, all pregnant women go through morning sickness. They've all experienced it. So don't make such a big deal out of it.
But the responses from my husband were completely unexpected. I had thought that getting pregnant would be met with joy first and foremost.
Anyway, starting tomorrow, make sure to take care of household chores just like before.
But I've had nausea since last night.
I don't care. Don't conveniently use morning sickness as an excuse.
No matter what I said, my husband wouldn't listen, and instead, he scolded me. Morning sickness is certainly not an illness. However, I was harboring a new life within me, and the burden on a woman's body is not to be taken lightly. Many men don't understand the hardships of pregnancy, but there were some insensitive words from my husband that I found hard to endure. Starting the next day, I did my best to handle household chores as usual. However, my body felt sluggish, and I experienced nausea even when there was nothing wrong. The most challenging part is when I'm preparing meals. The smell, especially when bread is baking, is unbearable. Ugh, I can't take it anymore. During cooking, I frequently had to rush to the bathroom. As a result, the quality and efficiency of my cooking naturally suffered compared to before. But no matter how much I tried to explain, my husband wouldn't forgive me at all. In fact, when I was retching in the bathroom, he said from behind,
"Are you pretending to be sick again? I have work to do. Hurry up and prepare breakfast."
Sorry, but I just can't stand the smell of the bread."
I don't care. I'm not interested in your excuses.
I didn't mean it as an excuse.
What if your delays make me late for work? Can you take responsibility?
My husband continued to yell, completely disregarding my feelings, physically and emotionally. I felt increasingly cornered. I managed to hold back the nausea and finished preparing breakfast. However, my husband didn't touch his breakfast at all.
Oh no, because you are so slow, there is no time left for breakfast. You're really lazy, you know. At least handle the basics properly.
Saying that, he slammed the door shut. Why? I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just carrying our baby inside me. Why do I have to endure such harsh treatment? A mix of frustration and emptiness brought forth a never-ending stream of tears. These days continued for about 2 weeks. One day, after confirming that my husband had gone to work, I lay down. On this day, my condition was worse than usual, and no matter what I did, the nausea wouldn't stop. For the sake of our unborn child, I needed to eat something, but I would burn it just by drinking water. I had laid down and ended up falling asleep. When I woke up, it was already noon. I needed to eat something and take care of household tasks. As I was thinking this, my phone rang. The caller was my husband. With a sense of unease, I answered the call hesitantly. Hello?
You took a long time to answer. Don't tell me you were sleeping, right?
I'm sorry. I wasn't feeling well in the morning, and I was planning to do the household chores now. To be honest, when I admitted this, my husband sighed and hung up the call. Shortly after, I received a message from him on WhatsApp.
I almost shouted at work, so I hung up the phone. Seriously, do you have no respect for me?
The message exuded intense anger, and I felt a deep sense of fear from his furious tone. My hand holding the smartphone trembled slightly. I'm sorry. I will do better, so please don't be angry anymore.
I'm done. I've had enough of you.
And then the WhatsApp messages stopped. What should I do? I need to reply somehow. But even if I apologize, I will just get scolded. So what should I do? While I was feeling flustered, my husband sent another WhatsApp message. The moment I saw the message, I accidentally dropped my phone on the floor.
If you can't even manage the household properly, then get rid of the child.
About the child? My vision went dark. My emotions were in turmoil. My breathing became irregular, and my heart raced. We had been blessed with our child, and I had thought it would bring us joy, and we could be a happy family. However, my husband not only failed to be happy, but also showed no understanding of my condition. Furthermore, to deny both me and the child in my womb like this, I won't forgive it. I can't stay silent in the face of something like this. I picked up the phone that had fallen to the floor. I understand. I sent in a message to my husband via WhatsApp. Then I packed my belongings and explained the situation to my parents, asked them to come pick me up. After returning home, my husband noticed that I was not there and received multiple missed calls from him.
Where are you? Avoiding housework? You were healthy enough to go out and have fun, so it was just a sham illness after all, huh? Hurry up and come home, otherwise I will divorce you.
In this person only capable of blaming, threatening, and belittling. By this point, my love for my husband had already completely cooled. In the end, he even called my parents home, so I told him, I have no intention of coming back, and blocked his contact information. Eleanor, are you sure about this? At this rate, you might have to give birth alone. Worried about me, my mother came to visit, but I had already made up my mind. It's okay. I will protect this child. My mother had a complex expression on her face, but understood my decision. I will help with what I can. She said this to me. A few days later, my husband went out of his way to visit my parents because I had cut off all communication, and he brought his parents with him.
What on earth are you thinking? Instead of idling around at your parents' home, hurry up and come home.
As soon as he opened his mouth, my husband shouted at me. Even my in-laws joined in to blame me.
That's right. You as a wife should not abandon household chores and push everything onto our son. Are you still a housewife?
I never thought you were that kind of person, Eleanor. You're pretending to be someone else in front of us all this time? I don't need a lazy wife in this house. Abandoning household chores? Pushing everything onto others? Don't joke around. I'm not doing that. I retorted with a deep breath, almost spitting out my words. If only you'd listen quietly. Cut it out. When did I ever push anything onto William? When did I abandon household chores? Despite going through the difficulties of morning sickness, I pushed myself and did what I could. So why do I have to hear such things from you?
Be quiet. What kind of language is that to use against the head of the household?
That's the kind of thing I've always hated about you. I snapped at my husband loudly, baring my teeth. Once I started, I couldn't stop. When someone is suffering from morning sickness, you tell them to hurry up and make breakfast? Or don't slack off on household chores? I'm not your servant. Do you know how painful morning sickness can be? Study more about a pregnant woman's body. You good for nothing.
What kind of language is that to use against your husband?
In the end, you just don't understand people's feelings. You're not a dependable husband. I was mistaken to think that. So stupid of me.
Who do you think you owe your livelihood to?
Then I don't need that kind of life anymore.
What?
My parents-in-law, who had heard the argument, fearfully asked me,
Hey, weren't you imposing household chores on our son? And just lazing around without doing anything?
That's right. Didn't you make our son do all the housework under the excuse of your pregnancy? It seems my husband had been explaining things in a way that suited him. I told my in-laws the truth. Certainly, my morning sickness was severe, and there were times when I had to lie down. William told me that morning sickness isn't an illness and not to be cuddled. So I've been struggling to do the household chores every day. I did it to the point where I almost collapsed. My in-laws' faces turned pale.
Hey, William, what is going on here?
When my father-in-law confronted my husband, he visibly trembled.
Oh, well...
Even at this point, my husband refused to admit his mistakes. Frustrated, I decided to expose his most significant wrongdoing. Mom, Dad, your son told me that if I didn't do the housework, I should get an abortion. What?
Is that true, William?
My in-laws, shocked to their core, stared at their son with their mouths agape. The phrase "get an abortion" was clearly crossing the line. I believed I was doing what I could. However, William never considered my health. He denied our unborn child. It's impossible to live with someone like that. The anger of everyone present was directed at my husband. Perhaps, sensing the uncomfortable atmosphere, my husband nervously chuckled.
Okay, I get it. I was wrong. I will apologize, okay? So can we put an end to this discussion?
At that moment, crack, my mother-in-law landed a blow on my husband.
Oh, what are you doing?
My husband squinted at his mother. Cut it out! Do you realize what a miracle it is to conceive a child? Do you understand? You've not only berated Eleanor, who is suffering from morning sickness, but you've also exploited her. On top of that, you lied to us. How much longer will you keep treating Eleanor as the bad one? My mother-in-law yelled at my husband with tears in her eyes, and both my father-in-law and I couldn't do nothing but gasp in response. Then, my mother-in-law turned to me, lowering her head. Eleanor, I'm truly sorry. I believed that foolish son of mine and ended up hurting you. I know it's not something that can be forgiven, given what you have been through during morning sickness, but I'm truly sorry. My father-in-law also bowed deeply.
Eleanor, let me apologize as well. Our idiot son has caused a lot of trouble. We will make sure he takes responsibility. Leave the rest to us.
Then, my father-in-law turned to my husband.
You are disowned, William. What? Disowned? That's right. A son who'd casually tell his wife to get an abortion isn't part of our family. You're not part of our family. Agree to the divorce. We're a family, aren't we? Divorce and all this is going too far. Eleanor's feelings probably won't return. As a man, you should prepare yourself.
My husband was left speechless by his father's words. Although my husband was initially reluctant to sign the divorce agreement, with the cooperation of his parents, he eventually seems to accept it. He appeared completely dejected, like an empty shell. Later on, through a lawyer, I claimed alimony and child support from my husband. I made the decision to give birth to the child on my own. Afterward, my husband sent me several WhatsApp messages.
I was in the wrong. Please forgive me. I realize that there is no one else but you, Eleanor, for me. Please come back.
However, I discarded his messages without responding. It seems that my husband, who had severed ties with his parents, is living alone in a neglected house. His behavior is affecting the workplace too. And now, his colleagues are talking like this.
It seems his wife ran away from him, huh? His shirt is all wrinkled and he hasn't even shaved. And on top of that, I heard his wife was pregnant. What a shame. He used to act so domineering until recently.
It seems my husband is constantly being made fun of at work. And day by day, he is losing his standing. I wonder how long his pride can endure in that environment. Well, it's no longer my concern. From now on, I want to prioritize my unborn child and our life together, even without a father. I want to make sure this child feels happy. I will give the child a lot of love.